All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Coffee with the Nerd. Today is March 15th. It's funny, somebody put the date as May 15th on the title for this. I don't know if anyone can see that anywhere, but yay, us. We'll do a quick check to make sure that we are live everywhere. Twitter. I always love doing this. Home. There. There. Yay, I'm live looking at myself. All right, let me tell the team. Can we get the Twitch running in our servers, please? All right, sorry about that. My partner in crime for these, Jordan, is off on an adventure, and we do miss him and hope he stays safe. I'm live on YouTube. Perfect. And I'll try not to say anymore. Follow me on Twitter at Monkey Kingdom. I do recommend you checking out that project, but that's not edit name. Oh, fuck it. Usually I had been doing these. I gotta stop bumping my desk as an alpha call where we go over our alpha list, but the sentiment of the market, although it turned around a little bit this week with some big announcements, has been a little blah. And talking to my team, talking to investors, talking to our community, I keep saying the same thing over and over again. And I don't like trying to row a boat upstream. I remember trying to fight the market in 2018. I remember thinking each and every week, like, it's going to be different. Oh, this is happening. This is going to be it. This is the one thing that gets us going again. Fuck, gas is at 17 GUI. That's pretty amazing. If you need to do some transfers or some floor sweeps, now would be the time. And it was a fool's errand. It was stressful, especially managing a community through all of that. And we kept trying. Like, January was definitely a single that shit was fucked up. But we kept trying to find deals and push out alpha. By April, it was almost embarrassing how much work we had put into it and how little success that we've had. So I'm not going to try this time. What I am going to do is I'm going to talk about those experiences so that you can have a better opportunity to not experience what many people in 2018 had experienced. There are real catalysts in the forward-thinking market that could give you an opportunity as an investor. So, now what's the best way to put that? Sorry, this call's a little off the cuff because we kind of decided at the last minute not to push an alpha list that really wasn't solid alpha. What I look for in these markets is, and I look for it all the time, but even more so now, is stable recurring revenue. It was interesting. I launched a new tool for our Axie Guild blockchain space, and they have a valuation tool in there for Axies. And I looked at the numbers and I'm like, holy shit, it's like 1/8 of what I've actually paid for those. Now, the saving grace on that was that they only value the piece, not the traits. So I was like, okay, that might save me a little bit, but you can now build Axie teams for 1/5 what people were building them for a while ago. And you would say, but they're not earning. There is this renowned, when you talk to the big guilds, they're still adding 300, 500 Axie teams a week. In fact, they're taking advantage of this downtime to grow faster with their available revenue or available capital. And it's interesting to me because I look at it and I'm like, well, I went from making about $5,000 to $6,000 a month in profit down to, like, this month I made like 980. The saving grace on that was that I didn't have to put in all the time to pay everybody, which is just a pain in the ass. The software did it. Screwed up a couple things, but it's now in place. It's now working, and at the next payroll will be even more efficient. But that's a big hit. This is the first month, probably since August of last year, where I wasn't able to take $5,000 of profit out of my business without diminishing the capital value of the assets that I have at play. And that can be frustrating. That's the market that we're in. I did just make a big investment into Monkey Kingdom, looking for the Gen 3 opportunity that they're working on. And when you start to put all those pieces together, you have to ask yourself one main question. What's my goal? Because the goal, hold on. If you are watching on YouTube or on Twitch or on Facebook, if you make a comment, I will see it here and I'll be able to respond to you. Captions. There we go. That works better. So feel free to ask questions at any time. When I first start working with a group or a new community, I will spend quite a bit of time just talking about goal setting. Ultimately, down markets are an opportunity. You have to be very careful with those opportunities. There is the saying of don't try to catch a falling knife. When the markets are pretty stable right now, they're just down, which can be a trap, can be an opportunity. It depends on which way you look. Now's the time to be dollar cost averaging. And when I'm dollar cost averaging, I want to look at what the rest of the market's doing. I don't want to follow blindly, but for some reason, the guilds still believe in Axie Infinity. And guilds have direct lines to the founders. They've got the ability to make recommendations. They've got the ability to drive change. And to me, that's a sign that there's something there. I've said before that many of the P2E games are really a Ponzi scheme. They only work if you keep piling new people on. What's interesting is I did have a phone call with a game this morning that I'm pretty excited about that is P2E, is guild-based, but in their tokenomics model, the tokens are used in the game so that as you earn them, you can recycle them back into the game instead of taking them out into the market to try to increase your value proposition in the game. Now, other platforms do that. This one, I think, I asked them for a full breakdown of the reward mechanism, staking mechanism, burn mechanism, or lockup, depending on which terms you use. And I need to see that still, but I got pretty excited about that. I'm still not selling any of my SLP. I don't want to sell it for a penny and a half. When I still see them doing something to increase the value of it. I don't want to spend the whole call talking about that, but I'm just talking about what I'm looking at as an investor in this space based on my previous experience. I know if I put money into Axie, I will get a relationship with a player. I will get some recurring revenue. I will earn a token that I know people are putting work into to try to increase the value of. And hopefully over time, now I'm going to be careful with this one. I don't think I'm going to see a huge increase in the value of like the Axie pieces. I feel like that they're going to have to come out with something completely new to restabilize the entire marketplace. And they're not going to be able to do it just based on tokenomics. They're going to have to introduce something new that you're going to have to get rid of something old to get. And when we see that, though, it might be a sign of a bottom. So keep an eye out for that. Let's go back to the Ponzi scheme comment. That's a big statement. I don't think that it's an intentional Ponzi scheme. Like the intent is to take money from people without providing value. I think no one has truly figured out the P2E model yet, because you can't artificially create more money. Well, the entire cryptocurrency market did that on an ongoing basis and expect it to be stable. There's a tipping point somewhere in there. And what you do when you reach that tipping point is critical. We're talking to a lot of P2E games that are going very slow with their rollout because they want to see what these first generation P2E games do in order to stabilize their economies, and then take the best of that and maybe try to do it better. At some point in time, Gen 2 P2E is going to come out, and it's going to be based on proper tokenomics that is going to be more stable. In my opinion, it's going to be a gaming token that's cross-game, and it's going to create a economy around that token, and then the best games will survive inside of that ecosystem. I don't think the market has the bandwidth for 1,000 games with 1,000 different tokens. It is very reminiscent of the ICO craze. If I see one more website that talks about their white paper and their roadmap, it doesn't have anything that I can do now, I am going to, not probably going to do anything. I don't really give a fuck, but I'm not going to pay attention to them if that's the case. Now remember, this is an open Q&A, or an AMA, so feel free to ask your questions if you have them at any time. I'm just checking. The only place that they don't auto feed is on Twitter, so I was just checking over there. When I look at other investment types outside of P2E, I am back to looking for backroom private chatter about exchange listings. I've always done really well with that. So you have a token post-IDO that hasn't listed on a major exchange yet. Typically, tokens stagnate in that void, and it creates an opportunity. Now, you got to remember that you need to be buying, what's the saying? Buy the news, sell the event. So when you start hearing chatter, I'll probably throw $1,000 here and there at some of these tokens. But the 100x returns, which have only happened a couple times that I've seen, have typically been in that either pre-IDO, you're usually going to see a 10x if you get in at the right time, or exchange listing is a good 10, 20, 50x. The right token at the right time on the right exchange, of course. It's not just any token that's getting ready to exchange list. And you've got to be very careful about the ones that are publicly talking about it. So that means, how do you get into those? Well, you've got to be part of a lot of different communities. One of the big things that we were working on with our team right now is setting up one Discord server that has the announcement channel from all of the other Discord servers that we're following, so that it's like my personal news for the NFT community based on Discord. And then each channel that feeds all of their announcements also feeds in their tweets. So now we have a single place to look at all of our news, and we have one person as an analyst that's just continually monitoring everything. And that gives us the opportunity to see everything in one clear spot. If you're really serious about keeping up with this space, you've got to understand that information is power, and that's where you're going to find opportunity. And if you're trying to manually track all that, you're kind of screwed. It's not possible. I just saw a couple more comments. Monkey Kingdom dropping by. Awesome. How do you think Gen 1 games will act against the Ponzi nature? Also, if someone might survive, buy the rumor, sell the news. There you go. Thank you for telling me how to say that. Okay. When you think of some of the favorite projects that I have, Monkey Kingdom is definitely at the top. You've got to go check them out. They're interesting in their focus on fashion. Now, their focus could be on anything, but it's the laser focus that's really, really important. They're building out an ecosystem around this single thread, and that always excites me. Like, it lets me know that they've got a destiny in mind for what they're doing. I often talk to projects, and they're like, their destiny is how they're going to make money. I will say this, Monkey Kingdom, I do wish your Gen 2 mid price was a little bit lower. This is a tough market to be going out at 0.3F, but I'm sure you guys have the models to sustain. and the popularity inside of the Asian markets to carry you through. It's going to be interesting to sell out 10,000 units at 0.3. When they do, though, complete that task, the sky's the limit after that. That's a commitment. A question came in: how do you think the Gen 1 games will act against the Ponzi nature? Also, if someone might survive and why? The only way that they will survive, and the majority of them won't, mostly because of the work that it will take to survive. I was talking to one of our advisors from our DAO, and he made a comment that really resonates. It is harder to resurrect a project than it is to just start a new one. So what you'll see is a lot of project creators, and every single one of them will say, I'm not doing that. And then they will. The project creators that have banked a lot of money off of their first drop will eventually abandon their alpha project, and they'll launch their next project, and they'll be much more successful in the second, as long as they don't come in with unrealistic expectations, so that they can fix the problems that they had in their first game. It's much easier to do that than to fix the problems in your game and try to reinvigorate a community. Now, the exception to that would be scale. If you've got scale in your business and you have a huge audience and you have a lot of float, meaning assets in play, there is a chance that you can resurrect. But the problem with resurrection is no one's ever happy. Meaning that whatever changes you make in order to restabilize the game for players, it's likely that if you are dealing directly with the players, meaning a non-guild mechanism, that you'll get backlash, because they're going to have to take less in order for you to do more. And unfortunately, no one ever wants to take less. They want it all. They want it all to work, but they also want everything in their own pocket. It's a good question. That's why, to me, it's very interesting, the belief that I get from guilds or guild management platforms around Axie. Like, everyone is still building there. And I'm going to take advantage of that. We went from 30 teams to 60 teams. My goal is 100. With the new platform in place, it makes management so much easier. So I'm going to keep buying. I'm going to keep building. Great question. Thank you. On the crypto side, now, okay, I guess at this point I have to do my disclaimer, which should have been done at the beginning. Nothing I'm going to say is financial advice, legal advice, or accounting advice. I highly recommend that you talk to your attorney, your financial planner, or your CPA. Everything that we talk about on this call is based on my personal opinion, my personal experience, and is not meant to be a recommendation for actions that you could take. In fact, don't listen to anything I say. I'm completely full of shit. And the less you listen, the more money you'll make. Now, when I look at the macro markets for crypto, those that follow me know that I am a big fan of Bitcoin, the buy and hold type of fan of Bitcoin, that is generational wealth, not just something that I trade back and forth. I still look for Ethereum, the Ethereum upgrades that are coming. Apparently, they're not calling it 2.0 anymore. There's a name for the fork for it. Is really going to change things. I think the developer community has done a great job, especially the team at like SVS, of limiting gas costs. I was able to mint 30 NFTs on there are 25 NFTs in a group on the Ethereum network, and my gas costs were like $19 or like $21. I have no idea how they did it, but developers are getting smarter. And as they get smarter, they eliminate the problems that many of us are facing with the projects that we want to invest in. There's a couple great P2E games that, if they were not on Ethereum, would probably be doing much better than they actually are. They're just limited by gas costs. And that kind of sucks, because I want to see everybody win. I'm a net buyer. let's say not a net buyer, I'm a net holder of Ethereum. So when I have Ethereum that comes into my ecosystem that isn't reinvested, it's not liquidated, it's held, I'm a net holder of Bitcoin. When I look at other coins, I am trying to find, for lack of a better word, the shit coins that are in that void between IDO and major exchange listing. There's a couple projects that we look at that are doing an IDO and a tier one exchange listing at the exact same time. That rewards initial investors. It rewards early IDO investors. It does suck out that void market, which can be advantageous for those seeking maximum gains, but not necessarily for the platform. So I don't question that. I think that's really it on the token side. With the macro NFT markets, we saw some big announcements this week that were pretty interesting. If you were on my call 2 weeks ago, no, two calls ago, so 2 weeks ago, I talked about what you want to watch for to see a bottom in a market. And I didn't think that we would see it in the NFT space, but it was interesting that we are. Consolidation is a good signal of a bottom. Consolidation is typically when the bigger projects buy out the little projects. Now, in this case, it was the biggest projects buying out the biggest projects. And it was quite impressive that somebody had the balls to do something like this. And I can see a vision for where they're going with it. When the Bored Apes bought out CryptoPunks, that was definitely a sign to the market that someone's building something big. We know that Ape Token's coming. We know that it's being run by Digital Currency Group, so it's going to be done right, legitimately, legally, all of those different things. We saw the backlash of KYC. KYC probably means a pretty big dividends coming, and that in order to get it, you're going to need to show your identity to make sure that the tax man gets their cut. I've seen some forecasts that those, in some cases, can be a 6-figure dividend. Now, I don't know if that changed because of the acquisition. And I was watching the Bored Apes as they fell down into that 60 range and wanted to pull the trigger, didn't. And as of yesterday, they were back up close to 100. I haven't looked today. I'm going to cry when I do, probably. I feel like I'm not a true NFT DJ. I'll back down to 89 from 96 because I don't own a Bored Ape. I'm going to see if the one that I wanted is still available. Where is he? Is he gone? I think he's gone. He was pretty. Very basic with the coin eyes. It's hard because $200,000 can generate a lot of recurring revenue. And if you've ever heard me talk, you know it's all about recurring revenue for me. But I see something big coming with this acquisition. What I'm looking for now is well-funded projects buying out other projects. Now, that doesn't mean that PFP projects are going to buy out other PFP projects without the IP or the brand that comes with the CryptoPunks and the Bored Ape Yacht Club, which not many other projects have. But you can see DAOs being bought out by other DAOs. You can see game platforms or games being bought out by other games. The people that figure out Gen 2 P2E are probably going to be able to buy out and roll up a lot of Gen 1 P2Es. That's going to be sorry, I got confused. Something that's interesting. So let's say that Axie Infinity does figure it out and they get stability in the market and they get back to, they were doing almost $1.4 billion a year in sales. I don't know where they're at right now. The macro project that figures out how to move from Gen 1 to Gen 2, meaning that they've got a tokenomics model that's sustainable. And I don't know that anybody will. I know a bunch of people are trying, but the one that does could then go back and buy other projects and integrate them into their ecosystem. I think Gala Games would be well poised to do that. They're kind of a gaming studio that uses cross-platform tokenomics. But those types of that type of consolidation is usually a bottom for a market. I'm not going to say that Bored Apes move or their lab is the signal for that, because it's so macro that when you start seeing it in smaller scale, I know there's projects. I said before, SVS, I'm a big fan of them. They've set aside like $1 million into a DAO for a marketing fund that's controlled by the community. There's a lot of limitations on what they can do with it, because they're saying as clean as a whistle. Is that the right saying? Clean as a whistle? I keep making shit up. But man, that war chest, given the right acquisition target, which probably doesn't exist just yet because there's still P2E until they get into their game, that there are projects out there that are well funded, well run, have a good core from a development perspective, that could go out and start making acquisitions in the future and bring people into the fold. In fact, you can see acquisitions or consolidation done without an exchange of money that would combine communities. We're working on one that would be interesting for the market to kind of scale up capital, audience, branding, and go-to-market strategy for future projects. You're going to see a lot of it, and I think we might be making an announcement here shortly on a partnership that goes further than just a partnership. Also, let me post real quick. Anybody that's interested in joining us in Miami for our NFT and crypto mastermind, we did just add Brett Fogel, who is a professional crypto trader and runs a very large crypto trading group. He's been sending me some of his signals information, which is going to be available in our server to whale shark holders here soon. Message us on Twitter, on Discord, on Telegram, wherever you want to. We've got a couple more tickets left. We did move the dates to May 3rd and 4th. I needed to be in NFT LA, or I needed to be in LA for NFT LA in 2 weeks. And we were having trouble getting all of the pieces together, and I couldn't be in two places at once. So we pushed it, and it gives us a little bit more time to build out the event. You're more than welcome to join us. Message us so we can talk about getting you a ticket. Everybody's just posting. Monkey Kingdom. All right. Well, I have rambled on for a good 30 minutes. I am available for another 30, but we would need some questions for that to happen. Let me go over to Discord real quick. Anyone have questions for our general coffee with the nerd? Also, we're going to be taking a break for the next 2 weeks from all of our phone calls as we retool how we're presenting ourselves to the market, both from a branding perspective as well as where these calls are going to take place. We're going to be doing Coffee with the Nerd as a Twitter space. We're going to want to have more guests on the call, so it's not just me talking to myself every week. And then our 10 a.m. AMA call is going to be moved back to Discord. And we're lining up our first guest in April. It is going to be pretty big. And I am pretty excited to be able to do that. And I think it'll give us more things to talk about. It's hard in a down, like, for those that haven't experienced a bear market, you spend a lot of your time and energy pondering why what you see today is the reason to believe that the market's going to move forward. And oftentimes you're wrong. There's so much macro, economic, geopolitical headwinds that it's hard to forecast when things are going to change. Now, if Russia somehow, so I'm reading some news about some bombings, if Russia if there was a ceasefire, if Russia all of a sudden pulled out of the Ukraine, if the Fed came out and said, now this is an and, not an or, if the Fed came out and said they're not going to raise rates because of what's going on overseas, and we saw stabilization of commodity prices, and we were able to pull back from the 7.9% inflation rate, we could see some momentum in the markets. Right now, there's negative sentiment. There is consolidation, not just in a project standpoint, but in a holding standpoint. There's not a lot of forward momentum on the options markets or the futures markets for cryptocurrency. All of that means that nobody knows what to do, and that it would take a lot of change at the macro level in order to create forward momentum from the micro, meaning an individual project. So you've got to tread carefully. Don't drain your emotions or your wallets trying to buy the dip, because you're going to see, I always hated this term, a lot of dead cat bounces. And really what that is that you're going to think that you're at the bottom, and then the cat's going to bounce and go lower. And that makes it dangerous. If you dollar cost average, that was the one thing too. Okay. If you dollar cost average, meaning that you set aside an amount of money each month and you buy the projects that you like, that you truly believe in, a little bit each month, you probably won't go wrong based on 2018 experiences. If you have the capital to buy 3 to 5 projects, and again, we're talking about the NFT space, the crypto markets are a little different, you'll probably do okay. You'll need one of them to hit at least a 4 or 5x to come out positive. But if it hits a 10x, you've got a windfall. The other thing that you need to be doing now, based on my experience and something that I'm trying to do, and I probably waited too long, is consolidate my efforts in my portfolio from an NFT perspective. I let myself get too spread out. And that primarily happened because I took on a lot of clients in the marketing space that I truly believe in, and I wanted to participate in them, that I am in too many things. I looked and I probably have assets in over 50 projects. And I'm like, holy shit, this is very reminiscent of 2018. And I waited too long to pull out of some of them. Now, if I catch gas at a good time, I could probably pull back a small part of my money and deploy it someplace else. And I've considered doing it, but I think at this point, I'm just going to let it roll. So consolidate your attention span too. Whether or not you can get out of projects that are kind of stagnated, I don't know. It depends on the project. And I can't make a recommendation on which project you should or should not consolidate in or out of. I can tell you that I am going to be personally putting more attention into building out Axie. I'm really looking at SVS. They're remapping their blood token. See, again, people reacting to the current market conditions, and they're doing so much to get people to hold. They're just not triggering volume. And that's a demand issue. Here's a question. Is there a general strategy with taking profits on P2E games like Axie? Yeah, there absolutely is. And it's dependent upon your goal. There's 2 models for these games. There's the compound model where you take profits and reinvest it into the game. Actually, I guess there's 3. There's the compound model. There is the liquidation model where every month you take your tokens out and you transfer them into a stable coin. Or the third one would be compound liquidity. What would you call this? It's what I'm doing. I see a potential for SLP to have more value in the future based on changes. And I could be totally wrong on this. So I'm holding my SLP. So like I'm claiming it and I'm holding it. What do you think the future of NFT space is in light of more of a FOMO bubble? Will it burst or will it come through? The NFT space will come through. It could become regulated, and the regulation will probably happen more on staking mechanisms and rewards and registration as securities or platforms are going to have to completely cut off the projects that issue tokens. It's one of the reasons why in the whale sharks, your whale shark NFT has no financial value. You have to buy an alpha node, which if they delisted our alpha nodes, it would make no difference to anyone. We could set up a secondary marketplace for them in an instant, but you have to stake your alpha node to get your reward token. You're going to see more projects get smart and separate the value proposition from their NFTs and the staking mechanism. Somebody should pass that back to the SVS team. If there's anybody listening from that community, I know they always proceed with caution, that like issue a coffin that you can mint. They have to pay for it. If you give it to them for free, it in of itself is a dividend. Sell it for like 0.05 Matic, which is like 20 cents. And then that is how you stake. You have to stake your vampire with the coffin, but the vampire itself has no intrinsic value. You're going to see more projects doing that. So when you talk about the future of the marketplace, you have to take a regulation into account, because that's the biggest limiting factor. And again, where does that come from? It's not my personal opinion. It's what happened between 2017 and 18. Well, you had a bunch of shit projects come out. You had a bunch of scam projects come out. You had a bunch of projects that were sold based on roadmaps and white papers and that never came to fruition. Those created a liquidity drain on the market. They created a negative sentiment in the market that then regulators needed to come in to save everybody. And that continued the downward spiral of that market until like the ICO market dried up. Now you have the IDO market, and it's a little different because only accredited investors get in early. Again, we're trying to protect the little guy. And then you have a public listing on an exchange, so it's available for everyone. There's probably going to be some regulation to decentralize exchanges too. If one bill comes out that limits decentralized exchanges, which is the token side of everything, and limits the marketplaces for issuing the tokens as a reward off owning an NFT, you're going to see a complete transformation. It's going to be back to a PFP flex. So you have to ask yourself, am I in a project that can overcome this barrier? And if they can't, is the PFP flex strong enough for me to survive? Okay, so I can't answer that question on this call until it's announced. So if you're in that community and you're in our Discord alpha chat, we'll come back to that. We'll do that in 20 minutes on our next call. That's why I wanted to do it early. Sell SLP when it pumps, buy Axis and stake it. I probably need to look at that a little bit more instead of just sitting on SLP. I'll admit, and I talked to my team about this, I personally got overextended again. This is like the third cycle of that. So I killed a bunch of things that we're working on to focus back in on what's important, and is already paying dividends. Ariella, Bruno, Marie, all of my team has been absolutely amazing at helping me transition. Mark, my new assistant, has been just a godsend. Even though I'm only using him like 10% of what he can do, it's given me the ability to transition a little bit out of a lot of the overworked aspect of what I was doing. So I want to circle back to that question because, as you've noticed, ADD kicks in. In light of more FOMO bubble. Now, the FOMO bubble is interesting. For example, typically on this call, I do my alpha list. I was reading what my team put together, and I'm like, shit, I don't know if this shit's going to work. Like, these are good projects. They've got good offers. Whitelist, you've still got some people seeking it. But if you really dive into it, this is another problem that many alpha communities have. And I was chasing this and realized that it's a fool's errand, is that when you are an alpha community, you attract a certain type of person. And that type of person is not a stability element to your market. You have to be a little bit different. If it's just to get whitelist, one rug pull and they're wiped out. And if they're wiped out, then they blame the person in the community that they got the whitelist from, and they don't participate in it anymore. Now, let's go this way so it doesn't seem like there's anyone's less than anyone else. The second tier of that person has enough liquidity to survive 3, 4, 5 bad events and still keep going. Hopefully they've profited enough already that they've got a stable income off of this. But I don't think you're going to see going forward the professional whitelist seeker like you have in the past. We're seeing a lot of a whole new market was developed around people that chase these whitelists and then sell them for 100 or 200 bucks, and they can make a living. They only need to get 1 or 2 a month and they can make a living off of that. It's more than they can get to P2E. But now we're seeing projects get smart and be like, hey, the person that buys a whitelist spot is probably not somebody that's bought into the community. But I don't think any of these hustles are really people buying in the community. And that in of itself is going to dramatically change the seeking alpha part of our industry. And people are going to need to adjust. And if they don't, maybe 1 or 2 strong communities, if they really live it, are going to see success with that. And their community is going to continue to see success with that. Oh, that's a tough, I don't know which way it's going to work out, but I know that it's going to change. So I don't want to continue to build on a model that I don't think is going to be sustainable. But knowing what's next, it's kind of like that Gen 1 P2E to Gen 2 P2E. If I knew the formula, I'd be building a game. I've got a game studio on standby. We've got the whole game modeled out. We think that our tokenomics are better, but I'm like, this is a shitty time to be launching a game. Just because there's so much transition happening that I don't know how it's going to all, how the dust is going to settle. Now it's a double-edged sword. If I wait until the dust settles, I'm going to be late. If I take action now, I'm going to be early. But am I going to be too early? Always the question. It becomes a risk-reward equation. And in that risk-reward equation, you just at some point have to man up, woman up, and take the leap. All right. So that was a great question. It's something that we're constantly thinking about as investors, as community managers, and also as marketers. I am being much harder on potential clients about their economics. And the reason is that I can tell when people don't have it figured out, and that I know then that my marketing in the long term will fail. It'll get them through some initial stage, but then they won't be around for whatever comes next. And that's a problem. People have some really interesting Twitter handles. Ballistic Freaks, blockchain P2E, PvP game. Obviously they're a game. That's pretty cool. I just like Ballistic Freaks. Any last second questions? Let me ask the audience, do you like, we need to do a little bit of a combination between alpha and Coffee with the Nerd, but I always love these types of calls as long as I can get good questions. And I do want to, even if it's not an AMA, have some people that join me on these calls. That was what was nice about having Jordan, that it makes it so that we can chit chat a little bit. In fact, if you are a project creator, owner, community manager, partnership manager, and you'd like to be featured on one of our calls, or you would just like to participate with me on Coffee with the Nerd, message our team, message us on Twitter, Discord, Telegram, send a carrier pigeon, and let's connect and let's just chat a little bit. It's better for everybody if there's more of us on these calls talking about things and answering questions. I don't really want Coffee with the Nerd to turn into an AMA or a pitch fest, but if you're a project creator and you think that you have some good opinions on some of the questions that were asked today, why not? I could use some co-hosts as we transition into Twitter Spaces. All right. With that, that was a good 45-minute call. I appreciate those of you that tuned in to listen to me ramble. Hopefully you got some value out of it. If you did, please post on Twitter what you learned from the call, tag me, respond to any of our event posts, message our team if there's anything that we can do to help you. And we will be back the first week of April. Between now and then, I will be in NFT at NFT LA. If you're going to be there, message me. Would love to hang out. I'll be representing Metacrafters while I'm there. If you are an investor, a major influencer, or macro community, message me as well. If you're going to be there, we've got a super secret double probation. No one knows. There's a movie. If you can tell me what movie that's from, I'll buy you a cookie. That is doing a major event there that's going to have all A-listers. That sounded so douchey. It's going to have a lot of big players from the space. And if you are a player in the space, we'd like to have you there as well. Message me and we can see if we can get you on the list. Other than that, I used to do my final rants. Okay. My final rant for this call. Don't buy the hype. Don't chase the hype. Pay attention to both what people are saying and what people are doing. The market has gotten smarter. There are plenty of instances recently where the smart money sat on the sidelines long enough to watch whether or not something was going to come to fruition. There is that waiting period that is going to lead to dramatic changes in the way that people approach markets. For example, you might start seeing that if there's 1,000 whitelist spots available, they might put 2,000 to 5,000 people on the whitelist because whitelists have stagnated. Watch for the shifts in the market. Watch for what people are doing and not just saying. How can you do that? Get their fucking wallet address by looking up their NFTs. If they're out there talking up a project and they don't own any of them, be careful. This is going to give you, oh, Bruno got it, Animal House reference. I love that. One of my favorite movies of all time. And I think for most degens, if you haven't seen Animal House, you need to see it if you're a true degen. Those were the degens of a previous bygone generation. Look as much as you listen. There's very little looking going on, meaning the second and third stage of research. There's a whole lot of listening going on, which is the herd effect. If you look, you'll win. If you listen, you could lose. And with that, peace out, everybody.